What's happening, Reds? It's Jay from the LFC transfer room, doing a video today on what would be my ideal summer. So before we go into the video, if you haven't already, just make sure that you subscribe to the channel, that you like the video, and also leave your comments on what would be your ideal summer as a Liverpool fan. I'm going to start from the back of the team to the front line on ideally what I'd like to see. So in the goalkeeping situation, I think everyone can agree the growth of Kelleher last year was brilliant. Every time we called on him, thought he was absolutely class, and that's why he was able to start the League Cup final, which again, he impressed massively in that, even aside from the penalty shootout and scoring the winning penalty. The big thing is now, with him having that growth, he's obviously going to want to start to play some games. So for me, I would probably loan Kelleher out, and there's three main reasons for it. One, he's never had a full season of playing football at the highest level or even in league football. So I think it's important that he gets that experience of playing every game throughout the season. And it's important for us to know if he can cut it at that level over a full season. The other thing to think of as well is obviously Alisson's still only 29, so he's got a long time left, and the chances are Kelleher's probably never going to replace Alisson. So it also works in our favour if he's loaned out to get a good fee for him. Obviously, if he has a loan move and has a really impressive season and decides, I want to go out now and play football week in, week out, love it at Liverpool, but I need to be playing every week, then if he's had a loan move, obviously that improves the chances of getting a good fee for him if he's had a full season and impressed. So that obviously means what would be the backup. Adrian, I'd let go. He's obviously done what he had to do for us when he came in, but he's not the answer. As a number two, I don't think he's anywhere near good enough, to be honest, if Alisson has a proper injury. So I wouldn't want us to spend big on a number two because it makes no sense. They're not going to get many games, but there's three free agents at the moment that are all decent goalkeepers and all play at a high level. David Ospina, that you might remember from Arsenal, his contract's due to run out, so he'd be a free. There's Asenio from Villarreal, and there's also Sirigu, who's an Italian international. They're all free goalkeepers that are more than adequate of being a number two, and they're all free. So rather than going out and spending big on a number two, that's probably not going to get a game, I'd sign one of them as a free agent. Let Kelleher get the experience, see if he can cut it throughout a full season, and also it only improves his value if he does have a good season out on loan. I'll look at the defence now. Obviously, Nico Williams has just been on loan at Fulham, done really well there. In an ideal world, I'd like to keep Nico Williams, but for the good of his career, I think he needs to have a move. And if that's at staying at Fulham, great for him. He seems to settle there really well and enjoy it. And selling him doesn't mean it's the end. You could always put a buyback clause in. But the thing about it is, Trent's still a young lad. And if he stays the rest of his career at Liverpool, I don't see how anyone can dislodge him at right back. So I'd sell Nico, get good money to be able to obviously use that in the summer window. Now, we're obviously linked strongly with Calvin Ramsey from Aberdeen. No problem with signing him. Looks an exciting young talent. Obviously, the thing is, how many games is he going to get? And with him being a young lad, how is he going to progress over the seasons if he's the number two right back when Trent's going to pretty much play every game at right back except for maybe the Carabao Cup and the odd FA Cup tie? So I think an alternative, not to Ramsey, because I do think we should sign him and try and give him game time, but there's another free agent available as well in De Siglio from Juventus. He's obviously played at the highest level now for years. He is a free agent. He doesn't cost you any money. He is 29, but again, it's not like he's a long-term fix for replacing Trent. I just think he's a player who is an international, has played at Juventus for years now, and is at a good enough level to play number two. If his wages aren't mad and he's happy to play that role, it'd be good cover for Trent if he does pick up an injury And then you've also got Ramsey as well, who's young, that can come into the side. So I'd sell Nico because I think we can get good money for him. And then obviously you've got the young lad Ramsey potentially coming in, and Skiglio is an option there for free. Should we want to go up that route and his wages aren't crazy. Left back, nothing needs doing. Robbo's obviously as good as he's ever been. And I think Tsimikas is a brilliant left back. The only shame of having Tsimikas is that we've got Robbo, because you can't really give him enough game time. And he probably does deserve more game time. But when you've got a player like Robbo in front of you, it's really difficult to get in. Centre half, we don't need to touch. We've got Kanate, who I think was unbelievable in the Champions League final. Van Dijk's Van Dijk, he's back to his level. Matip, I think, was massively underrated the season just gone. He was brilliant as far as I was concerned. I really do think he was great. And then there's Joe Gomez. A lot of people are talking about potentially selling Gomez or giving him a loan move, because obviously there's a World Cup coming up and he's going to want to play in it. For me, there's no way you sell Joe Gomez. A loan, maybe give him a 6-month one with the ability to recall him. But there is no way I'd be selling Joe Gomez. I'd like to see him sign a new contract, because I'm wary that he's not got a very long contract left. So I'd like to see Gomez sign a new contract. Maybe have a 6-month loan so we know he's staying. Because for me, Gomez and Kanate are the future of our centre-half partnership for Liverpool. If you remember Gomez and Van Dijk when we won the league, they were absolutely brilliant. And I think Gomez was outstanding as well. A lot of people talk about Van Dijk, but Joe Gomez was absolutely brilliant that season, and that's why there's no way I'd let Gomez go anywhere. I really do rate him. I think he's a great player. So I'll move on to the midfield now, and I think this is the area that we need to strengthen in the most, to be honest. Reason being, Henderson's obviously getting older now. Milner, there's a chance he leaves. Naby Keita obviously wasn't injured as much last season, but throughout his Liverpool career, I don't think you could say he's someone that you can rely on. And obviously Thiago and Fabinho also do pick up injuries throughout the season. So with it being an aging midfield, and obviously we do have a couple of players that pick up knocks throughout the season, I do think this is an area that we definitely need to focus on. I know everyone's talking about signing forward players because it looks like Mane's going, but for me, midfield is where we need to strengthen the most. I feel like Henderson's form last season declined, and I don't think you can rely on Naby Keita. But I'll start with the Milner contract situation. I have no problem with James Milner signing a new contract at all, but obviously I prefer it to be with a coaching role entwined. Don't think he gets enough games, obviously because I don't think you can play him every game. I don't think he's at that level now to be able to perform at that level, but I think what he brings to the dressing room, it can't be replaced. You know, having young lads around, and even when you bring in new players, if they have a bit of ego or cockiness, players like Milner and Henderson just knock that right out, so it doesn't happen. They set the standard and they're the benchmark. So I think his influence in the changing room's huge, and that's the only reason I'll probably keep him. And then obviously when he does retire, it'd be great to know that he can go in straight into coaching for us and maintain that standard. Naby Keita, I know obviously his contract's due to expire at the end of next season, and there's talks of Paris Saint-Germain being happy to pay 30-40 million for him. I think that's crazy money when he's only got a year left. We're talking about a player who hasn't consistently performed since he's been here. He's been very underwhelming, in my opinion, since he was signed. Obviously, the first 3 seasons we've had him, he's been plagued with injuries, so couldn't get consistency. But I don't think his form's consistent enough to warrant a new contract. Um, so I'd bite your hands off if Paris offered us that money, to be honest. I wouldn't be offering him a new deal. What I would like to see is, obviously, if we can get 30-40 million for him, do it and use that money to sign other players in the window that we need. If not, the player I'd like to see us sign more than anyone is Jude Bellingham. And I think we should be going to Dortmund with Naby Keita and saying the asking price for Bellingham's around 80 million. We can get 30 for Keita, arguably 30-40 million. I'd go to Dortmund and say, here's 50-60 million, and you can have Naby Keita as a part exchange as well. You're getting a great price for Bellingham, who's going to play for Liverpool for the next 5 or 10 years potentially. If he does decide to leave, you're going to get a massive resale on him anyway. So it's a no-brainer for me to approach Dortmund with that. That gives Dortmund something to think about. They're getting a replacement straight away, and they're also getting 50, 60 million to play with on new signings. So that would be my priority. And even if we can't get Bellingham with that deal, I would still sell Keita, just because I don't think he's consistent enough. When he's good, he looks great. Games against City, United this season. But when he's bad, he's really bad. The game just passes him by. And sometimes he reminds me of a small old man trying to play football in a young man's game. It just looks too fast for him, the pace at times. So for me, I will get rid. Now, as I said, I think midfield is the position that we definitely need to strengthen the most. If we weren't to sign Bellingham, or it's not possible to get him this season because Dortmund are putting the foot down that they won't sell him, I think we should go for Barella from Inter Milan. I think we need a marquee signing in the middle of the park. If it's not Bellingham, I'd like us to get Barella and then next season go for Bellingham, because the midfield needs freshening up and we need younger players. And I feel them two will fit that profile perfectly over the next 2 seasons. Other ones to think of, to be fair, Christian Eriksen's available for free. I think we should be all over that. We need goals and creativity from midfield. We don't have much of that at the minute. Thiago's probably our only really creative midfielder. I think Eriksen would be a brilliant shout on a free. Obviously, I know at this stage of his career, his focus is probably playing as much football as possible, but I think he gets games in our team. We need a creative midfielder. He's free. For me, that's an absolute no-brainer. We should be going all out to do that, in my opinion. Another player who I think we could look at is Xavi Simons from PSG. He's a young lad who all of Europe have been raving about for a couple of years. Hasn't quite happened for him at PSG, but he doesn't really get a lot of game time. He's a young player who I think Klopp could morph into a world-class player. So I'd like to get Xavi Simons on a free. So I think there's some good options that we could look at in the midfield. So I'll move on to the forwards now, coming toward the end. So it does look like Mane is obviously leaving. It's reported everywhere. Looks like he's going to Bayern Munich, and we can get 30, 40 million for him. If that's the case, then yeah, I think we should take the money probably. There's no point keeping a player who's unhappy. Albeit, I think if he was to stay an extra year, he's not the type of player that's going to down tools. I think he'd still give you 100% commitment. But I think he's been that good for us that we owe it to him, that if he does want a new challenge, we should give it to him. Now, the main thing for me in the forward line isn't the Mane situation. It's the Mo Salah situation. Now, for me, this needs to be resolved this transfer window. And I think it's to the point now where I'd say to Salah, you've got 2-3 weeks to make a decision. This is the last contract offer you're going to get. You sign it or we're selling you. I don't think we can afford to let Mo Salah go on a free after a year, after this season, should I say. We'd be, if you can get 40 for Mane, Salah's more of a poster boy and his numbers are better. I'd try and get 80 million plus for Salah. I'd sell him. I wouldn't let him do all this holding the club to ransom about I'll stay at a Premier League club after the season. I'd sell him now. If he won't sign the contract, I'd prefer him to stay and sign the deal. But to me, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. We've been talking about this now for what feels like 12 months. I don't see a solution to the contract offer. So I'd put a final offer to him, and then I'd say sign it or you're getting sold this season. Now I know a lot of people are panic and think, oh, you're selling Salah and Mane in the same season. I don't think it really matters if you've got players that don't want to be there. And I'd maybe put to Mane, look, we're selling Salah. Would you stay for an extra year? Take the money for Salah because it's more and let Mane go on a free. If not, obviously Mane's going anyway, so I would like to see a sign of forward. Now for me, there's only really one forward that we should definitely be looking at, and it's Christopher Nkunku. He's made for Liverpool. Klopp likes players with versatility. He can play left, right, in the middle. He can play a false nine. He could arguably play as an advanced midfielder as well. We should be all over that deal. If we can get 40 million for Mane, Obviously, that could go towards the purchase of Nkunku. I think he cost around 80 million. But obviously, if you've already got 40 from Mane, it's technically a 40 million signing. So I think we should be all over Christopher Nkunku, and I hope we are. I think the other two players I'd like to look at is Chiesa from Juventus. I think he's a fantastic player. He fits into our system as well, works really, really hard, and he's a top player as well. The other one who seems to have gone under the radar recently, his numbers aren't great, is Danny Olmo. I think he's a brilliant player, and he can play that false nine perfectly. So I'd also look at him. A lot of people are talking about getting a central striker. For me, there isn't really a out and out number nine out there that really I'd go all out for. There's Lewandowski toward the end of his career. He looks like he's got his heart set on a Barcelona move. There's a lot of talk of obviously people saying Harry Kane. And I don't think that's possible. In an ideal world, you sign Harry Kane and he plays false nine. I think he's perfect for Liverpool. But I just don't see how that could ever happen, especially now they're in the Champions League again. So that would be my priority, them three players that I've just mentioned. So I'll finish on players I get rid of. The reason I mentioned so many midfielders before is because I'd sell Oxlade-Chamberlain. If we got 10 million for him, I'd be happy. I think it's time for him to go. He weren't even making matchday squads, which I think tells you everything about him at the minute. He just needs to go out and get football. If that's at West Ham or Southampton, I think they'd be two good moves for him. Maybe Aston Villa. Newcastle, if they're looking for players of that ilk, I think Newcastle will be looking for better players than Ox, if I'm honest. But it's time for him to go for me. Every time he plays, I'm frustrated. Um, Milner again, I'd be happy to keep him as a player coach potentially, but if not, if he's going to go, I think that's where we need to improve with a couple of midfielders, and that's why I've mentioned a few today. Naby Keita, I would 100% sell. If PSG want him, sell him there. If not, I would definitely make the proposal I mentioned earlier to Dortmund for Bellingham. Up top, I'd like to keep everyone. Looks like Mane's going, so if he does, I'd like us to replace him with Nkunku. Minamino is one a lot of people have talked about. Should we sell him? Should we keep him? For me, it's difficult to get a player to do what he does in terms of goals and coming in and doing a job when he plays. We arguably got to where we got in the FA Cup and Carabao Cup based on what Minamino was able to do when he came in. If you sold him for 15, 20 million, I don't think you can find a player for that amount that'll do what he did. So if he's happy to stay, I'd keep him. If not, maybe we could go to Leeds. I know they've been interested in him in the past. If we could get Rafinha for a nominal fee around 25, 30 million and give them Minamino, I think that's good business sense because even if you were to sell Rafinha in 2 or 3 years, you're probably going to get double that at least. So I think that's an avenue we could look at. Just to mention as well, because I never mentioned the young lads, I'd loan out Curtis Jones. I think he could do the full season of playing every single week because there's no doubt the lad's got massive potential, but I think it's hard for him to show it when he's in one every 5 games, if that. I'd like to see him have a full season at a Premier League team, someone like Southampton or something like that. I think it would do him the world of good. And again, similar to the Kelleher situation, increases his fee, shows if he can cut it at that level week in, week out as well. So that'd be my ideal summer. Obviously, make sure that you leave comments as well to say what your ideal summer would be, if you change anything from what I've said, if you agree or disagree. And obviously, make sure you subscribe to the channel and that you like the video as well. Thanks for watching and can't wait for the new season.